Good afternoon and welcome. We're going to begin this session. Technology never ceases to amaze me. Software developers continue to design new tools, and many of these tools have great potential uses. Information technology professionals are constantly introducing us to new technologies. We want to join them now and help you explore an interesting concept, the virtual library. And within the virtual library, two concepts, virtual reference and artificial intelligence. We meet this afternoon Gordon Russell, Director of St. Thomas Library and Professor of Law, Mr. Michael Rosenblatt, President of LifeFX, Billy Joe Kaufman, Director of the Law Library at Southeastern University and Professor of Law. My name is Roy Ballester, Reference Electronic Services Librarian.
And the mouse works? Amazing. I haven't seen whether this works or not, so I'm going to be testing with the rest of you. Some of you may be aware of an article that came out in Legal Reference Services Quarterly about a year ago by Diane Klaber, and if not, it's called "The Time Is Now for a National Law Library Consortium." And interestingly, in that particular article, she does a quick one paragraph talking about virtual legal reference desk, and her comment is, as our customers become more global and expectations are for access anytime, anywhere, a shared virtual reference desk would seem to be inevitable. And as I read her article, and I probably was more struck by the thoughts and the aspects of this, led me to look at virtual reference and attend some conferences on virtual reference, looking at what other people are doing in that area. And there are a number of listservs, started subscribing to some of those, was sort of struck by what was happening. And you may be at institutions where your main university is doing something with virtual reference. But out of this sort of idea of virtual reference, making it available, it sort of got me thinking about the role of the library in distance education. You know, Langdale talked about the library as this workshop laboratory of the university, but the reality is that workshop is not where our students are today. I want to throw some numbers at you. I don't keep statistics. You know, I'm a good law librarian. I don't keep any statistics. Then I don't have to answer to anyone. But some of you out there do keep statistics, and one of the places that does keep statistics is Gonzaga University. And I was sort of intrigued. If you look at their circulation statistical numbers over the last 4 or 5 years, what you'll see is that they seem to have a steady downward trend on circulation. And they also keep reference statistics. And they qualify it a bit by saying, well, you know, our statistics, we're not really sure how accurate on those types of things. But I find interesting, again, what you see is this downward trend on reference statistics. Okay? And I'm not sure that, you know, individually we don't all have that same sort of feeling as far as our law students inside the library coming in asking us questions, where our numbers are going. You know, and one of the threads that is sort of stressed to me is I really believe that where we're moving to is the mausoleum to the book. And we can be this great archives to the book if that's what we're going to be. Unfortunately, it's not what I want to be. And I was sort of intrigued, you know, if there are people out there asking questions, who's answering those questions? I don't know if you ever noticed when you would go up to the Westlaw or Lexus where you had your machines, when you used to have the dedicated Westlaw and Lexus rooms and their machines and there were phones up there, how many students would be using the phones, calling a reference attorney for those, get their questions answered. Well, I was really intrigued, you know, as I looked at live reference, because all of a sudden I started to notice, and I don't know if you've noticed, that on Westlaw and Lexus they both now have live reference, or some type of live reference. If you go into the various services, all kinds of live reference services out there. Different companies coming up with software and products in that aspect. If you go to Westlaw now and you look at their Westlaw page and you go up to the help page and click on it, you can actually now contact a live help on Westlaw. Same with Lexis Online Reference, have a little button called Live Reference Help. click on that, you come up with a little information, tells you what to do. I was kind of interested in it, so I actually, went online on Lexis, talked to one of their representatives just to get a little feel for what they had to say, talked to Timothy, found out how long he had been doing it. But I was more intrigued, so I phoned Lexis and I said, can you give me some numbers? And so what they sent me was, since this started back in July of 2001, up until the present, they gave me numbers on the number of students who had asked questions using that service. And I said, well, could you give me NOVA's numbers as well? And so what you have on this page in blue is St. Thomas University numbers. In light blue, you have NOVA numbers. And what you see is a steady increase, so that you're talking now numbers up around 160, 180 questions a month off of their live reference by Lexis. So students with a question going to live reference. Our students, that's what they're thinking about. Click and click. We're here, we want to click on it, we want to be able to access information, we want to be able to get there. So the challenge for us is, what are we going to do to answer those type of questions? We're going to do it because it allows us to better serve our patrons. It allows us to produce virtual learning environments. The idea of an engaging, exciting environment, creating two-way communication, okay, in an environment. And some of the things that are going to be discussed by the rest of this panelists extend that sort of process. But out of this, what I came to the conclusion was we needed to look at virtual reference. How could we as a library serve reference? And the first thing I thought of was, this is a natural for a consortium or a joint effort. And so I think we were sitting at AALS with Billy Joe in an evening, and we started talking about this, and she said, well, that's a great idea, let's do it. And so what we did was we contacted a number of vendors. Roy looked at all the various products. We had some vendors in to talk to us. And the end result is that we entered into an agreement with a company to do virtual reference software that will allow us to both have a site at NOVA, at St. Thomas University, that we will be able to, starting in July, go forward. Our students will be able to download the software. It's a browser-based software. It'll just appear on their browser. Once they download the software, they'll have a little icon for reference help. They'll be able to click on that reference help, contact a reference librarian. The service will be available on a rotating. So we each have a setup so it's available. We'll be splitting the time. So when the student asks for a question, who they get at the reference end of the virtual might be a librarian at St. Thomas, it might be a librarian at NOVA, and we're going to cover those times during the time that we cover our reference desk and allow for it. Nice thing about this software is it keeps track. It keeps track of the information that's sent back and forth. It gives you a printout of that information, so we'll be able to statistically look at the numbers, be able to look at the outcomes, the results of the process, and be able to share that information. It allows for push technology, so whatever online databases or services that I at St. Thomas have, I'll be able to push out to the students to answer their questions. The same at NOVA for anything that they have available to them, be able to push out to the students. Students will have that information, and then they can continue to use it through the services, so if it's first search or whatever. And to me, the exciting part about this process, at least for us, is looking at it is, this is an opportunity for two institutions to share an opportunity. It's also an opportunity for us to look beyond that. We're looking at services that through these companies provide, which are virtual after-hours reference, so that actually we can send it out to a third party on the hours that it's not in use. And I think that we're going to move forward in October. We both have LLM programs that have distance students, and we're going to do a small test of that just with our distance students, so that they'll be able to actually 24/7 be able to send out questions. Those will be turned back to a librarian who's available through a third party, and we'll actually get a printout of the results of each of those conversations so we can look at what they told them, how they used it. They'll be able to, again, push out our technology that will be available to them, what databases that we have online to share that information. But if you think about it from a library standpoint, and this idea of a national library consortium, we cover from one coast to the other coast of this country. We cover time zones. If I have a virtual reference desk availability where you're covering it in California to your last hour that you have a reference librarian available, someone else covers it in the morning, we could cover a lot of hours as a group if we worked at this as a shared sort of process. with service set up. It's an opportunity for us to look at the questions that are being asked by our users, being able to push the technology to them, the information that we have available, that's online available, and the expertise of our librarians, and share that information. And I think that that's an exciting prospect for us if we want to work together in this project.
In order to continue, I'm going to introduce you to some aspects of artificial intelligence that will help you understand what the next two speakers are going to cover. The idea of artificial intelligence is fascinating, at the same time full of endless possibilities. It is fascinating to dream of the many features that advanced computers will offer us in the years to come. The idea of highly advanced computers being able to interact with humans create endless possibilities. And that is the key word, able to interact with humans. How can we have our computers to help us, help students, and at the same time create a connection so that the students, when they interact with these computers, they don't feel that they are just playing with another software or just engaging in the OPAC. This goes beyond that. This is what MIT believes that artificial intelligence should be. How to understand how the human mind works. We believe in the vision, robotics, language are the keys to understanding intelligence. For our purposes, language is the operative word. Artificial intelligence is the subfield of computer science in which intelligence behavior is analyzed and computer systems are developed that are capable of emulating, mimicking, or generally exhibiting such behavior. It has been said that if you engage a computer and you are fooled by believing that this being in the other side is a human being instead of a computer, then that's when you will know for sure that it is artificial intelligence, a real good artificial intelligence. It was at Dartmouth College in 1956 when Professor John McCarthy got together with about 400 IT professionals, and that's when he came up with the idea of what AI, or artificial intelligence, should be. I put this here because I found it interesting. In 1996, how this high school student was already thinking about artificial intelligence and the potentials that it could have. This person today is a computer engineer. But in high school, he was already moving forward. He knew that at some point artificial intelligence would be as important as the wheel was many years ago. And I do believe that that's the case. Recently, what used to be science fiction has become science fact. Through the magic of movies, we have been exposed to the concept of artificial intelligence. The classic movie 2001: A Space Odyssey is a good example. Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick took all of us into a fascinating world of advanced computer technology in a story of future space exploration. In this story, they presented to audiences the concept of artificial intelligence, which you could say is the software engine that powers virtual technologies. Aboard the Discovery spacecraft for traveling to Jupiter, the HAL 9000 was not a simple computer. It was a living, intelligent, artificial being. This computer interacted with the astronauts as any other person would. In the movie Red Planet, director Anthony Hoffman transported us to the year 2057 aboard the Mars One spacecraft. There, he showed us how the astronauts utilized virtual mail to keep in contact with friends back on Earth. Movies such as Blade Runner, Lost in Space, Star Wars, Star Trek, AI, artificial intelligence, and the time machine, continue to tinker with our imaginations. Perhaps the best example was presented recently when director Simon Wells shared with us the virtual librarian Vox in the movie The Time Machine. Keep in mind that we do not have to travel to outer space or wait 50 years to utilize these technologies. And with that in mind, Mr. Rosenblatt.
Hi. Thanks, Roy. I'm Michael Rosenblatt, the founder and president of LifeFX. And it's interesting to listen to Roy's presentation. We sort of are born out of a couple of the things that he spoke about. Our technology was originally uncovered at MIT. There is a project called the Human Physiome Project, which is a parallel project to the Human Genome Project, in which they're mapping all the physical properties of the human body, much the way they mapped the genetic map of the human body. And I happen to have some friends at MIT. I am not a technologist, by the way, at all. So it just happened to have a friend at MIT. And we don't have much to talk about, but we're friends. And I happened to be in his lab one day, and he was working on this project. And he had a television screen there, and there was a human heart, beating human heart on this television screen. And I was killing time waiting for him to go to lunch. And I said, how did you film this? And did somebody open up somebody's body and film this? Well, it was weird. And he said, he said, that's not a video, that's a virtual human heart. He said, but we actually have cardiologists who come in here and see it and think it's a video. So my background was in the motion picture business. I had been a producer of movies. And so I said, gee, could you make the outside of the human body look that real? And so he said, oh yeah, we could do that. That'd be really easy. Well, as I've come to learn now dealing with technologists, this was in 1995. It isn't quite as easy as he said. But we did it, and the concept that I had originally was to use it for special effects in the motion picture industry. But then in late 96 and 97, and the fellow at MIT's name is Dr. Ian Hunter, Ian said to me, gee, what we've really created here is the ultimate form of compression, because we're not sending graphics over the web, we're sending instructions over the web. And that got us all thinking, and the web, of course, was bubbling up at that time and becoming important in all of our lives. And so we started to apply the technology to the internet. And we ended up with what you will see today. But one of the things that is really important to me, and I do this relatively often, these little speeches in front of groups like yours, and usually I know nothing about your business. I know absolutely nothing about being a law librarian. I'm really in the communications business. We don't think of LifeFX as being in the technology business. And very often when people see our technology and the concept that we create virtual humans, I mean, just saying that sounds strange, and it sounds like it's a science fiction movie, and it sounds like you really have to be deep into technology to deal with this. The analogy I make is that, we all watch television, and I'm going to venture to say that nobody here has a clue how that picture ends up on that screen. I mean, I don't have a clue how it goes through the air and comes out of that box. Not a clue. Now it comes through a cable. And I suggest that we think about what we're doing in artificial intelligence in a very similar way. It's really about the content. You care about whether the TV show is entertaining or whether the sporting event is entertaining. You care about what you're watching. You don't give any thought to the technology behind it, and either will your audience or customers, depending on how you refer to them, or students. They won't care about that. It's either going to be something they enjoy using or not, and that's what we're about. We all know intuitively that if you have a choice of speaking to someone like this or like this, you prefer seeing someone face to face. You learn more that way. You pay closer attention that way. In fact, we've dealt with a number of educational groups, and anybody in education seems to get this more than people in business. It just seems completely intuitive to people in education. So don't get hung up on how hard this is, and you can take this all the way out to the future, as Roy did, and yes, you may have machines that will think and really compete and pass the Turing test, and you'll start to say, oh, gee, is that a person or is that a machine? But you don't have to go there. You can take what you're doing today, as Roy and Billy Joe have done, and you can apply these technologies to make what you're doing more appealing to the people you're serving, to the audience you're serving. When we designed the product, because now it's no longer technology, it's a product, we knew it had to be simple to use. Roy can speak to that better than I can, but we think it's really simple to use, and it's very, very simple to use to your audience. It's just turning on the computer, they download a program which is 300K, and bang, they don't even know anything's happening. It just starts working. So you don't have to have any technology bent to use this at all. And so I don't know your business. The people at Nova called me a couple of months ago, right? I guess it's a couple of months ago, out of the blue, and said, gee, we're interested in doing this. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great application of our technology. They've been wonderful to work with. I actually brought with me some little discs of the software. I only was able to get maybe 10 of them. I didn't know it was going to be this big a crowd. Into my briefcase, but I'll be glad to give them to anybody who would like to try it. And I hope you enjoy it, and I hope I can answer your questions, but don't ask me technical questions, because I won't be able to answer them. Thanks a lot.
When Round Stout started us off this morning, we always want to know why we're doing these things and what purpose it's going to have. And I think many of you know that there are those of us who seem to always want to be pushing the edge a bit. And so some of that is just pushing the edge a bit. But more and more people are wanting a human touch. We do seem to really like each other. But our machines have great capability. And so we are trying to find a marriage of those two really important capabilities. There are animated agents that can speak and respond. And when Ron was showing us this morning the virtual assistants at the courthouse, I thought he needs a stand-in to help us get through this maze. So we studied a variety of things. We've tested a few things. We are investigating a few things. And we always try to report back to you. And so as we enter in our project with St. Thomas, we'll continue to do that, both in our work with the Convey software and with our life stand-ins. We're trying to design work practices and tools that leverage and interconnect humans and computers. One of the reasons we have our mandatory laptop is not for technology. We believe that lawyers have to be able to manage the content, manage the knowledge, and make use of that to serve their clients better. So we believe we'll use some of this technology for routine and frequently asked questions. We wanted something that would work in multiple languages. We're located in South Florida. We have a dual degree program with the University of Barcelona. We need to think not only about English speaking, but Spanish speaking. We also wanted to expand our hours and our capabilities. We do a lot of statistic gathering, unlike Gordon, and we know that our students are doing things at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., and I don't have any of my librarians willing to work those hours. But we know that students have questions and need responses at that time. Some of it is a bit high-tech. It's just user intrigue. What else is really out there? And some people are a bit unwilling or unable to really approach a real librarian, so we'll see if they like Paige, our stand-in, a little bit better. So I'm proud to present Paige, our virtual library assistant. And this is using the LifeFX software.
Hello, my name is Paige, your virtual library assistant. I was created to answer directional and reference questions. I can also forward queries to our library catalog and assist you in using internet search engines. If I'm unable to answer your question, please contact the reference desk at 954-262-6201. Thank you.
Now for those of you who are Spanish speaking,
Hola, mi nombre es Paige, su asistente virtual de la biblioteca. Yo fui creada para contestar preguntas relacionadas con recursos bibliotecarios y temas generales con respecto a la biblioteca. También puedo hacer búsquedas en el catálogo público electrónico y asistir con búsquedas en el Internet. Si no le puedo contestar su pregunta, por favor llame al escritorio de referencia al 954-262-6201. Gracias.
we hope you've enjoyed meeting Paige and learning about our Convey project and our LifeFX project. And we, I think, have enough time if you have questions about some of these adventures that we're on, we'd be happy to entertain them.
Oh, for the Convey, you say? It's two different projects, but that eventually they will work together, because Paige will be able to direct students to the virtual chat. In other words, if Paige doesn't know how to answer the question, she will direct the student or give the student the option to get a live librarian. Right now, well, this is the...
This is Paige.
Yeah. Right now, it's still in the beginning stages, but eventually you will have the option for students to interact, to type in questions, yes. Yes. Yes, it will be. Yes.
I have a question for Gordon. We were talking about pushing the information out to patrons.
Right.
Sure, you could clarify that. As I understand, push technology where you take information and email.
What, I guess what I'm using is that what happens under Convey setup is set up so that I can actually take over their machine. In essence. So whatever I look at, whatever I want to take, I can push to their machine so that they can see it. So if I'm using a, say we subscribe to, I would say BNA, but that would obviously raise a red flag. A subscription database that we subscribe to that has the answer to their question, or
Well, then, in that case, if you're sharing information off the database with patrons of another school, or if you have licensing issues that you've worked out, or
with Convey, the way this would work is they could push their database information. So in essence, I would only be able to take the information that was available from St. Thomas, or if it was a Nova student who was logged in, they would only. And the way we set this up is we're only going to be dealing with those two school students. So
have you talked to vendors about sharing
We're not sharing information from school to school.
Oh, you mean as a future thing?
Like if you
No, we have.
your reference librarian was answering questions.
I can only push what Nova has. I cannot push what St. Thomas has. So if Nova subscribes to a database that we don't subscribe to, I don't have access to it. But I do have. So in that sense, it's what the student has available, because they're, in essence, it's because they're coming in through their services. So you're pushing what they have. So you have that. But that's going to actually make it kind of interesting in a sense, because we're going to have to, as we get into this project, understand what's available through the two schools.
But in certain, these vendors probably would never get to that stuff.
And the third stage of this, obviously, if we move to a third party who's available after hours, the same type of thing. This person coming in, logged in as a St. Thomas student, would only have access to St. Thomas resources.
This person.
During the oral presentation, one of the things the back end isn't any good. The front end is cheap. Can you talk about the aging back end?
For Page,
Yeah, I mean, are you building a knowledge base, your FAQ, the skill that we all think that we think is so highly rewarded for something like a reference interview, where you find out what the person really wants? Where's that info?
well, the questions that Page is going to ask, there's going to answer, is more like type of rules, the rules of the library, directional questions, very simple questions. The trick part is how do we make sure that Page answers questions like if somebody types where are the bathrooms, but she's programmed to answer where are the restrooms. Will she know that bathrooms and restrooms are the same thing? And that's that you're venturing into the area of natural language, which will play a part in this program. And of course, we're going to have databases set up to bring up the answer once it recognizes, matches the question with the answer. But just to have a page set up is it's not, as Mr. Rosenblatt said, it's not that hard. They provide the code that you need to plug in into your website. So if you know web design, and you have your good Dreamweaver or front page, you should be able to plug in the remainder information. They also provide you with the player. You need a player to be able to display any standing. It's called the LifeFX player.
Maybe I'll give you a little bit more information on that. The stand-ins will say anything you tell them to say. So anything that you record, the stand-in will speak in any language, any language independent. A stand-in is nothing more than any 2D photograph. It's always we start with. So if you send us a 2D photograph of, let's say everybody loves your librarian, then the virtual librarian, the stand-in, can be that person. The interesting thing when you were talking about natural language, when you get into all that, when you're starting to build either a decision tree, which is a very simple artificial intelligence concept, and what I think most people will be dealing with in the next little while. We were working with a company called Kiwi Logic. I don't know if you dealt with it at all. Yeah. Okay. And Kiwi Logic is a natural language interface company, and what that means is that they work on software so that when somebody types in a question, the computer understands what it means, like restroom and bathroom is the same thing. And they told us that when they use the stand-in on the front end, that the computer, their program, this is really weird, they really were stumped by why this was happening. The program understood the questions much better, which is weird. And so they really were stymied by this, and they kept calling us and saying, why is this happening? We didn't have a clue why that was happening. And ultimately, we figured out that they were designing their software in a way so that they were desperately trying to make it communicate with people as people would communicate with each other. And so so that was their task, and they were pushing that envelope as far as they could. When the people were dealing with the computer and it didn't have a human on it, the people were desperately trying to deal with this computer as if they were a machine. And so instead of asking the question the way they would ask you or I the question, they would try and phrase the question the way they thought a machine would understand that question. And so when the face went up, when the LifeFX standing went up, suddenly the users were dealing with it like it was another person, which is really a weird and interesting concept. Because what we're talking about is ultimately, we're heading towards sort of the ultimate human-machine interface. And when that happens, then you're going to deal with machines when we deal with people.
How far are you hoping to take the
I think preliminarily it will be pretty straightforward direction. I also see her in other aspects of the law school, for instance, to give a tour of the building, because Paige can learn all of that. For new students, for instance, or directions. We have 6 or 8 highways that you can get to us from. So things that are somewhat almost boring to understand, Paige ought to be able to handle them. So I think those will be our preliminary things. But I do see other things that she might do.
She can synthesize voice from text, but we're not in the business of creating synthetic voices. And I can tell you that most of the synthetic voices out there are pretty bad. There are some new ones. In fact, AT&T is coming out with one, but the price structure on them is very different. I mean, the LifeFX standings are relatively inexpensive, painless thing to add to your site. I think that's fair to say. When you get into hosting voice servers, sometimes it can be pretty expensive, especially if you want something good. And so, I personally, we have people in the company who disagree with this. I personally don't encourage that because I think that you have this great looking face and then it speaks like a drunken Swede, which is the way they describe that. But it can. You can just pump through text. So you could theoretically, in going to your, if you're talking about references or large amounts of information, you can just have a question that accesses a big chunk of text and Paige will say that text.
I think one interesting study might be is even what Paige looks like or who you choose that face to be. I'm certain I've had librarians share with me, well, I'm always busy at the reference desk. Well, is that because it's just that time of day, or is it because it's that particular person? Are they a better reference librarian? Are they more energetic with the student? Do they do a better reference interview? And so, people may respond to different pages differently. Page doesn't look to be exactly what you think a Spanish student person might. It doesn't necessarily look like. So that may we may have to have multiple pages. I'm not sure how that will work out, but I do believe that that's probably an interesting sort of personnel-related situation that might be interesting if there's a test. What do they respond better to? What LifeFX? Because if you do face mail, which is another part of LifeFX, you can send your email in a page-like format, but it can be sent with a clown's face, or Cleopatra, or a dog. So it doesn't have to be a person.
We had Motorola did just that. They for one of their sites, they were introducing a new phone, and they actually had 6 stand-ins for them of different ages and ethnicities to appeal, well, one, to try and appeal to the groups that they thought were their customers, and two, to find out, gee, is there one person who everybody's going to go to that person? Which tells them a lot about what people want, really want to do like that.
My question is sort of related to the Carolyn's Andrew voice. What I'm wondering is, at a certain point, the page has used up her repertoire. Could a live person step in? And then it would continue to be her face rather than
Just the voice.
my face. But I just had trained for the 24/7 and see, the conversation bubbles are sort of awkward. It'd be really much nicer to have a stand-in when you're, working on a page together, following leads, showing them how to do a Westlaw search, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, it's a tiny leap for us to do that. We haven't done that yet. We call it real-time stand-in processing, so that it would be the stand-ins. Obviously, as you see, are driven by voice. In this case, they're a recorded voice. It could it's not a very big leap for us to have it be a real-time driver, so that if you hit a question, and what we envision is that if Paige got to the point where she couldn't help it anymore, she'd say, let me bring in my supervisor or my associate, and another stand-in would come up who would then be connected to a real person on the phone, and that person would, so you'd be having a live chat, but there'd be a face talking to you. Powerful. Yeah. Yeah. Well, if enough of you buy it, then we'll do it. Think about it.
Well, and that's why we're testing it with our distance programs. We're already through WebCT or Blackboard. It's text chatting, because they're already limited by that capability.
And just as a follow-up on that, with the company that we're using for our virtual reference, their software allows you to do chat as a text chat. It also allows you to do chat as an audio chat or to do a video chat. So it scales up. We're starting with just text chat, but we understand that what we may end up wanting to move to is more of a voice chat. But the system that they allow you to do whichever one of those you want to. So, today allows you to, basically their essential allows you to integrate with whatever video that you're using. So if you're using TVCD or whatever you're using, it'll integrate through it, and we'll integrate the other way. So they give you some flexibility. I think that where we probably would want to move to more quickly is probably voice. My experience tends to be that I find voice more useful. I've done a lot of work using CALI to do voice group discussions for classes that I run, and I like that. And I think from a reference standpoint, not having to type, as Billy Joe can probably explain, when we run an online chat for a class, the typing does become a little bit difficult. So I think that where you're going to move to is voice, and that was one of the reasons we looked at this product and liked it, because it offered that opportunity to start with text but move the voice.
I think that ability to be able to push the electronic database, or push, like you said earlier, the Westlaw screen, and walk them through that. You have on their computer what you're trying to explain to them, that is really one of the major other things that we look at. Because some of the programs will allow you to do that.
And the downside with voice is when you're using text, that the information becomes saved, so it gets sent back to all the questions that you answer get sent back to them. They get a file with all the information that you gave them. Unfortunately, if you use the voice aspect, you don't get that file in the queue. And so there are some trade-offs that you make between the text and the voice part of the process.
Did you see the text recording on the chat?
Certainly could be.
Well, we're actually looking at it, as I mentioned, we're looking at doing the 24/7 where we'd actually push it, where we use a third-party virtual support company who have librarians who'd be answering questions. And obviously, we'd be interested in seeing how those librarians were able to answer the questions that were from a group of law students to see if they were providing the type of answers that we wanted. So, yes, that's going to be helpful for us if we look at outsourcing it.
The software also has the ability to get repetitive questions, which we often do as a result of various skills and values questions or kind of digested, but you could pull some of this kind of canned answers, and also that enables you to have a better consistency with when student A asks, they get the same answer as student B, so that an overall consistency of response is a little better.
Well, I think those are all questions that we haven't got an answer for.
We'll give a program next year.
Telling you how we're working.
Actually, our staff have done a number of projects together for many years, actually. So we'll create an agenda and do training, and that I'm not quite as worried about that as I am the third party. But those will be things we'll test, and of course, to have that text archive, we'll have something. We'll have more than we ever really have with real employees, because we currently don't video or audio require for their answers. Sometimes your users actually, because the convey software, and I think many of the others, also at the end of the session have an automatic evaluation. So the user is asked to evaluate their session with that reference personnel, which we don't even do now, theoretically. So.
And I guess the other thing we should